Perfect, thank you. We're going to call this meeting to order now. It's 6:33 p.m. on March 3rd, and this is a meeting of the City of Portland's Police Accountability Commission. Language interpretation, how to use it, Spanish language interpretation through the interpretation button on the Zoom toolbar. ASL through video feed. Public meeting, subject to city administrative code and conducted under the provisions of Oregon Public Meetings Law. Zoom chat function, chat transcript will be included in meeting record for this meeting. Zoom questions and answer function for questions only, not comment. Not all questions will be answered. If answered, both questions and response will be included in meeting records for this meeting. Other relevant questions will be included in agenda planning for future meetings of the PAC. Thank you. Move to slide 2, please.
Victoria, the Spanish language interpreters need to speak their part before we move on.
Okay, go ahead.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas noches, bienvenidos a todos. Este es un anuncio únicamente para ver esta junta pública. De hecho, si ustedes quieren escuchar esta conversación en español, por favor, debajo de su pantalla, en la parte de abajo van a ver un icono donde está el globo terráqueo. Pueden seleccionarlo para que escuchen su idioma español. Toda esta conversación va a haber interpretación simultánea y también tenemos la función del chat en el Zoom por si tienen alguna pregunta y también el cuestionario de preguntas y respuestas. También tenemos esa función para poder, si tienen ustedes alguna duda, pueden ahí ponerla incluso en español y ellos se encargan de contestárselas en lo más brevemente posible. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Okay. We're gonna enable the interpretation for Spanish interpreters to move them to the audio channel on Zoom. Thank you, Ruth and Maria. The city also offers ESL interpretation, which is being provided by Maria and Andrea. You can pin the video feed if that is helpful to you. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on the Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance for future public meetings. Either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov. to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to the City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State Law, and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom. Sorry. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom questions and answers feature as the commissioner are presenting or discussing things. If attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the questions and answers. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversations during the meeting and future meetings agenda topics. We would like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both of the questions and answers will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the questions and answers icon on the middle of your screen. The timeline of the Police Accountability Commission. As you can see, let me just. As you can see, here is the the phases of the commission. The commission began meeting in December, setting up the task list for the organizational phase. It is in the organizational phase of work now, which is expected to end at the end of March. After the full commission determines its agenda and scope in March, the commission will move into the next phase of work and develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before presenting that to the City Council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. Move to slide 4. Today's meeting primary objective is discussion of values and principles of the agenda and scope. The next 2 weeks will include 3 work sessions on the bylaws. In the second half of March, the commission will meet to consider values and principles, agenda and scope, bylaws, and community engagement framework. Take public comments and finalize them to complete the organizational phase of work. This slide is the current project plan for the organizational phase of the PAC. It is not their agendas and is not set in stone. This slide is mostly for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now through March, when it will finish discussing process and begins its works in earnest with discussion of policy in police accountability. Today's meeting is near the center of the top row with the yellow outline. Let's now review the community standards. My name, I forgot to say, introduce myself. My name is Victoria Lara, and I will be one of your facilitators for the meeting. With me is Christine Moses. Christine will be the other facilitator who facilitate this meeting and also talk and give us the equity training. Thank you, Christine. I will give everyone a moment to read our community standards. And I will read it for you as well. Keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. Keep focus on the objectives of the meetings and individual agenda items. Utilize facilitators to note additional topics for discussion. Arrive on time and prepare to the best of your ability. Let the group know if you are unable to attend a meeting. Keep multitasking to a minimum. Contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meets your needs. Treat each other with respect and be supportive of each other. Keep in mind that everyone has their own truth. Listen with an agenda and refrain from interruptions. Be polite, courteous, and thoughtful. Assume good intentions from our colleagues and collaborators. Challenge ideas rather than individuals. Approach different opinions with curiosity and seek to understand. Use I statements. Affirm other speakers. Do not use violent words. Instead, say something positive about the previous speaker and simply add your own thoughts. Respect privacy. Everything shared in confidence needs to be kept in confidence, and honor the decisions of the group. Can I get everyone to give a thumbs up that you agree to the abide by this for today's meeting? Yes, Angie?
Sorry, that was my thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Before we begin all this PAC agenda, I want to ask for a minute of silence and remembrance and meditation of the violence and all the people from our community that has been impacted by, and just to remember them and their families and friends, and how everything that happens in our community affects everyone and affects us, but especially the people who has lost a loved one, a friend, or has been hurt in any way. Let's just have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Let's move to the slide 7. And this is overview of today's meetings. And I think I mentioned it already, but first is the equity training led by Christine Moses of Buffalo Cloud Consulting, the PAC values and principles, the discussion and adaptation of PAC values and principles document following the conversation at the January 27 full commission meeting that we have, PAC scooping and agenda setting. After January 27th meeting, review the scope of work of the commission and the mandates given to the commission by the city council. Today, the commission will begin ordering those items into an agenda document and defining future phases of work. Subcommittee reports and feedback. Co-chairs from the subcommittee on bylaws and internal processes and the subcommittee on community engagement processes will briefly update the full commission on their subcommittee progress. Thank you. Now, Christine, I will pass it to you. Thank you.
That sounds great, Victoria. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate being here this evening and to have us begin really taking an equity lens to the work that we're doing. When I host a public meeting, I always begin with a land acknowledgement. The purpose of my land acknowledgement is to center the traditional native inhabitants of the land upon which we live. I want to respectfully acknowledge the Chinook, the Clatskanie, the Kalapuya, and the Multnomah and the Clackamas, the two tribal nations who are missing from this map, who are now part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde because of the genocide that occurred in the creation of this country. I honor those who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I pay my personal respects to their elders, both past and present. So today, I want to take us through what does equity mean? And the City of Portland has a racial equity toolkit. And this is just a wonderful opportunity to introduce the commission to this website area. And the toolkit includes setting racial equity goals, collecting and analyzing data. That's basically the second part of your charge, along with understanding the historical context around whatever it is that we're using this equity lens on. We're engaged those who have been impacted, and then refine the outcomes and develop equitable strategies, implement changes, and evaluate and report back. And so this website is quite extensive. It has a racial equity toolkit manual, as well as guides, goals, and potential outcomes. And I really want us to know this website. I also want to have a conversation around today what equity means, because it is one of your values that you are going to be discussing today. And so the top link is to the equity website, and then the racial equity toolkit manual link is here. That is the second one. And on page 26 of the manual, it says, equity, when one's identity cannot predict the outcome. And so our conversation today is, what does this definition mean to you? And what does this definition mean to the commission? These are our two questions that I would love for us to have a conversation about today. And again, the definition of equity is one's identity cannot predict the outcome. And I'll put the questions, I'll stop sharing and put the questions in the chat. And I would love for us to be able to have a conversation about this. Is that me? So please feel free to step in, to raise your hand. I would be glad to facilitate a conversation around what does equity mean when one's identity cannot predict the outcome. Angie, thank you.
You're welcome, Christine. And I know this is more our conversation than it is your conversation. That's why I wanted to step in and say something. So,
Beautiful.
but yeah, I don't completely agree with that definition. I know you didn't make that up. I was actually part of some of those equity toolbox conversations back a long time ago when I was working at the city. I don't know if I totally agree with that, or I don't completely agree with that. I feel like equity is a lot deeper than that. Saying that not knowing somebody's identity and having this, and not having the outcome not be related to somebody's identity is just too two-dimensional in a way to me, because I don't, how do I say this? I want people's identity to be known. That's the thing about it is I don't want it to be part of why the outcome happens, or maybe because their identity is known, they need, in my vision, when I try to define equity to other people, I try to say that sometimes there's certain populations or there's certain identities that need more help than others. And we're trying to get to the same outcome for everybody. And if one person needs more help than another person, then that's, it's not tied to their identity necessarily, but I don't like erasing people's identity. That kind of bothers me. So, and I'll let somebody else talk. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling right now, but I do want other people to speak. So I'm gonna step away for a minute, or I'm gonna let somebody else talk.
For me, equity is getting that 8.5 shoe and not a size 6 that everybody else gets. It's not equality, it's equity. It's about what I need, and I might need more than the next person. So I'm wondering what people are thinking about that aspect of what equity means to them. Sophia and then Faith.
Yes, I want to go back to the training that we had, we as the commissioners, we had, and there was this picture of equity, and it had all these people of different heights trying to watch a game, I think it was. And equity showed that each person stood above the fence at the same height, so that everyone was a different height, And at first they put one box down, one size fits all, right? But some people still couldn't see over the fence. And I like the way it showed that you needed different size steps for everyone to be on the same level. And I thought that was a very good example of equity. We're all different, but we all want to look at the game, right? We all want to be a part of it. So each one of us being different needs different things to put us all on the same level.
Beautiful, thank you. Faith?
Yeah, that picture is really helpful. Thanks for bringing that up, Sophia. What comes up for me that feels like an important piece of the conversation is that the wall that's there that's standing in the way for people, for a lot of people, it's there intentionally. It's not an accident by design that that wall exists to exclude or mistreat or harm certain communities, particularly communities of color. And I think I'm gonna lean a little into your second part of the question of what does this mean to the commission is sort of like accountability would be, you know, the different sizes of those boxes that help people see over the wall. But it's hard for us to work through that without acknowledging that the wall is there on purpose, that it was built particularly to benefit some communities at the cost of others.
Beautiful, Faith. Thank you so much. Lavisa.
So this definition, when one's identity cannot predict the outcome, is reflective to me of what, well, philosopher John Rawls would call original position, or the idea of the veil of ignorance, which is sort of this idea that if decision makers have their knowledge of the participants in a situation, like a court case or something, for example, you know, if those participants were veiled, how much more, you know, equitably could the decision be made if, you know, if the judge didn't know if the person on the other side looked like him or didn't look like him, or was in the same socioeconomic class as him or was not. So I in general, I'm a fan of this, the idea of the veil of ignorance. I do think that it can lead to more equitable outcomes. I also thought of the picture, it's almost a meme of the people, you know, standing behind a wall attempting to watch the baseball game, and you know, it's a shorter person, a medium-sized person, and a very tall person. And I've seen a few variations of this. You know, one is an equitable distribution is, you know, giving the shortest person and, you know, the number of boxes that they need to stand on it. But then I've also seen sort of a step farther than that is, you know, justice or liberation, which is like removing the wall or keeping the fence because it's for safety methods, but turning it into a chain link fence. So nobody even needs to be, you know, there doesn't have to be a remedy because there isn't a harm, basically. And so I think, you know, there is equity, and you know, it's this very important concept. But to me, it's also it's related to, but it's not the same thing as justice or as liberation. Which I think Faith mentioned, you know, is the recognition that the wall is there in the first place, and possibly doing work to remove the wall, not just work around it.
I love that. Doing work to remove the wall. And going back to that, I'm wondering what the definition of accountability, when we're talking about equity here, when we're talking about the work of the commission, what does that accountability look like from an equity perspective? Dan.
Are you speaking about accountability of the commissioner or accountability by the board that we're designing? I just want to make clear what you're saying.
Yeah. By the board you're designing. Seema.
To be clear, are we working on, are we parsing definition for our future work?
You are, and I'm sussing out each of your ideas around equity. I want us to be able to speak them into the room and to see the rich, diverse perspectives around what even the word equity means, because we all brings a different meaning to that word. And so I'm giving us an opportunity to be able to bring those different meanings into the room. And then your values are going to be talking about equity and inclusion and those different value statements that you're going to be working on later on this evening. Yes.
Yeah, on that, then I would probably say when it comes to police accountability and creating this board for a police accountability, independent police review process would require a less bureaucratic rubber stamp approach, and everything needs to be seen individually as it's presented and weighed individually. Oftentimes, majority of the previous IPR cases that had gone through were generally rubber stamped, I think within 3 or 4 different variations of dismissal. And so we need to be able to step away from that and be able to see things and weigh them for the evidence that's actually provided. So I think that's an equitable approach. It's not an equal, you're not providing an equalized form of approach to the decisions that are made. So I would hope that we're a lot more nuanced and we provide a board that is able to, kind of make decisions that affect impacted communities in a much more positive way, especially since we've been denying their voice overturning all their reporting that's gone through. I don't know of one that actually has been a founded case in recent history. Dan may be able to help with that history, so that's impossible where every single IPR case has been unfounded. So let's fix this and find a way where we're actually looking at everything with proper measure individually.
Thank you so much, Seema. Catherine, and then Angie.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, everybody. I just want to sort of build on what everybody else has said and kind of apply it to this definition. When if the definition is when one's identity cannot predict the outcome, if the outcome is bad for everybody, then that is absolutely not equity. So I think that you have to focus on what that outcome is. So you want an outcome that's not, predicated on identity, but you also want an outcome that's fair and just. And so I think that brings in some of the justice concepts that Lavisa talked about, and the identity concepts that Angie talked about, and then just kind of the results of our current system. I think the outcomes are pretty predictable, which is that no one is is getting fairness and justice, or it doesn't seem like it if we're not holding, systematically not holding folks accountable. So having an outcome that that does do justice is, I think, what accountability would mean in this context. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angie.
Thank you. I kind of feel like in our work right now, that having accountability in equity and having that be part of our work kind of, or doesn't kind of, means that we will be giving more attention to those that have been harmed by in the past. So I'm hoping that, so in my version of what equity means, I was trying to get to it, but I had to go back to some notes that I have, but it usually, in my vision, it means giving a little bit more, or giving a little bit more attention to the people that have been underserved in the past. And I feel like in our work, trying to work towards equity would mean that we would be giving voices to the voiceless that didn't feel like they had their voices heard before. So if that means giving more voice to their voices now, then that's what needs to happen. We're giving them the size 8 shoe now because they were getting the size 6 shoe before, like everybody else. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Debbie.
So I was thinking about the thing about the wall and the barriers, and then how that applies to our oversight system that we're designing. And thinking about the example of the one that we have now, I know when that one was being created, there was a concern about having people have to come to a city facility to file a complaint, because some people are not comfortable walking into a city facility, especially a police bureau facility. And so that was one of the things that was talked about. It ended up, being based in City Hall. But I know that over the years, the staff has made it so that you don't have to go into the building to file a complaint. You can do it on the phone. They'll meet you someplace out of city buildings and everything. And so I think it's going to be important for our system, the one we're designing, to make sure that when people do feel they've been harmed by the police, they can talk to the staff of the new board in a way that isn't threatening to them. So they will want to come forward and not be nervous or intimidated or, and just not comfortable. So that's one way I think about it.
Thank you so much. I think this has been a very rich and thoughtful conversation for you to have primed the pump to be able to get into this wonderful conversation about your values. So I would invite us to take a 5-minute break and then come back and be ready to rock and roll. Sound good? Is that okay, Victoria? All right, 5 minutes.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue. Perfect. Thank you.
Victoria, I think you're frozen. Angie, is Victoria still here? Oh, yes, you are. Okay. There you are.
Happened. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, for the discussions, we need to be brief. Anyone can speak multiple times, but take no more than 1 minute each time that you speak. And I personally will call commissioners to ask if they want to speak before we continue to hearing and listening to the same person. That way everybody has a chance. Be facilitated, raise hands on Zoom and allow the facilitator to call on people in a way that promotes conversation, keeps things moving, and allows everyone to speak. And be constructive. Look forward and discuss how to make the subcommittee's work more successful and diffusion on each question. Okay, thank you. And do we have the slides for the document, please, for the values? Okay. This is the document. We're gonna have a discussion, and it's about the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission values and principles. Below are the values of the Police Accountability Commission, which should be reflected in the work of the commission, establishing a new accountability system and oversight for police. These values include some of the language from the City of Portland's core values, because the new police accountability system should help the city fulfill its commitments and hold the city as a whole accountable to its commitments. The Police Accountability Commission is committed to putting these values in action by fulfilling the listed success criteria in its work establishing in a new system. Sophia, are you ready to go and review each, start the conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Just say hello to everyone. I was a little late starting, so I wanted to greet everyone again. I had a meeting with Angie and I, and we were sitting down trying to figure out, what are the values that we have for this commission and for the Police Accountability Board. And we talked it over, we all had this conversation with Samir. And one of the questions that we had with Samir and the facilitators is, what do we want to see at the end? I mean, what would make this board a success? So I'm going to take you back just for a minute, just to think about what your comments were at that time. I don't know what they are or were, but I do know we all had the same questions. So I want you to ponder that for a minute. What would be the outcomes of this commission? And so as Angie and I spoke and talked about this, we came up with these core values, and we did use some of the City of Portland's core values, and we try to integrate some of those into the values that we had here. And these are just a draft. This is just something that came off the top of our heads. I wanted to review these with you all, and we wanted to see if you had any other suggestions, any comments, any values that you think should be there. I mean, this is definitely not all inclusive. We just put something together and in a format to present to you all as a commission for your input. So I just wanted to ask, before I get started, I want to ask, is there any questions as to what we're trying to do? So there's the value, and then there's the goal of that value, and then there's the success criteria. So how would we measure being successful with that goal? Using that value, what would the goal be concerning that value? And then we want to go, how will we measure? How will we measure that as success, or what would success look like? So we have things like equity, anti-racism, and some of the things. It was really good that we had our little training right beforehand about, what do we think equity is, and what is racism, and these are the values that we're trying to uphold with the commission and with accountability. And what are those goals? I mean, we talked about them a little bit. It was a very good discussion. We also kind of touched on transparency. When we're talking about the wall, why not just remove the wall? But these are some of the items that we just came up with offhand. If you can scroll down a little bit, I'm looking on two computers, so.
And Commissioner Sophia, I'm sorry for interrupt you, but Angie wants to say, Commissioner. Andy
Sorry,
wants to
go ahead,
say
Angie.
Did not want to interrupt you, Sophia, but I did want to mention to everybody that that a lot of this was actually taken from the February 27th, our last whole group meeting, where we went over our values and principles. And so so I just wanted to let everybody know that we did go over, we both Sophia and I rewatched that portion of that meeting. And I took a lot of notes. I know she took a lot of notes because we were talking about the same things and what people had said during those meetings. So please know that we did try to incorporate all of that, but we do want more more participation for sure. So thank you very much. And thank you for Sophia for presenting this.
Oh, thank you, Angie, for mentioning that. It totally went past me. I do want to add to what you just said, Angie, that there were a lot of good input. And one of the things that both Angie and I realized is that some of those items that were really good, we couldn't seem to figure out how to categorize them. So as we go through here, if you were one of those people who have one of those items that didn't show up here, I would invite you to discuss that and see if if you feel that that's one of the values and where does it fit in this whole scheme. So I'm going to start with the values, and I just want everyone to take a moment to look at the values and to just make some comments on what they think of that. Is there something missing? Do we need to add some? I just want to start there, and then we'll go to the goals after that. So I'd like for folks to just pop in and say, if, what do you think about these values? Just a general comment right off the top of your head.
And Commissioner Sophia, I saw that Commissioner Connie had raised her hand. I don't know if she wants to comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not about what the question on the table is, but it is in reference again to the question that Christine asked about identity through equity. And one of the things that I think is important to acknowledge is that the people that can see over the fence are the ones that need to help remove the fence more. That the people that can't see over the fence are the ones that is difficult to give the responsibility or expectation that they are the ones to remove the fence. So equity, to me, in the image, if it's not, the difference is, the between equity and equality is that the equity is that those with the view will remove the fence first or do the initial or, the work to help everyone remove the fence. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question though, Connie.
Okay.
Since I got you going, since your brain is moving here. So what would be that goal? What would be the goal there? So that's part of equity. Is that a separate goal than what we have already as a goal for equity? And what would that look like?
That those with the most like privilege and benefit to be the ones to speak first or help push or maybe like carry the torch for equity and inclusion. Yeah.
And on the other side, and I'm kind of not doing what I said I was going to do, but since I've got you going, we can use, if you don't mind being on the spot here.
Sure.
We can go through just an example, just using yours. So our goal would be to have, I want you to repeat that, to have the folks
that have the most privilege and sort of, I guess, support to be the ones that help create and remove the barriers to that same support for others.
So we would like, I'm trying to rephrase it just so we can put it in a short.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else can help now.
I
Anyone
might
else?
need to see it written out. That's, I think, where I'm having a hard time, like editing it.
And Commissioner, I just want to remind you that the conversation, that's pretty good. The conversation is very good. There's nothing wrong with it. I just want to keep in our minds that values is what the commission is gonna have the foundation for their work outside, more about that than what internally behavior among each other. And your comments, I just want to remind that the values is actually, as an organization or this commission or anybody who talks about values, is how the foundation or the beliefs that they're gonna behave, they're gonna guide their actions outside of the work they do, more about the community agreement. So the community standards there between you, each commissioner. I also have a note here, and I don't know if it's important or necessary, but CMAP told me that City Attorney Sarah Ames has her hand raised and may have input, but because this is facilitated and coordinated by the co-chairs, Sophia and Angie, I will let the commissioners decide if should we listen what she has to say, or we can wait. It's up to you.
I would like to wait if she can wait just a little bit. I wanted to just give commissioners some time to go through this and make more comments, just so I can make sure that we're all on the same sheet in our discussions. So
That's perfect. Thank you.
yeah, given what Victoria said, I will hold that conversation for one moment between Connie and myself and the group. And I'd like to just open it up to just getting some input on the values that we already have down. Are there any that we are missing? Any that you would like added, or is there a category that we're missing, or something of that nature? So what right now we're talking about equity, racism, trauma-informed lens. This is how this commission is supposed to be doing its work. Transparency, people-centered, community-centered. And then we use this word empowered because that came from one of the comments as well. And help, and another one is city government that helps and not harms. And there's a lot to be categorized later. So I just want, if I can, I don't want to call on folks, but I would really love to hear a comment from everyone about what do they think of the values? Do you think that there needs to be something added or something we're missing? I just want to make sure we have that first from the group.
Commissioner Sophia Faith, and then Eva, and then Zoe, and then Monica have they want to talk. Okay.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
You're
welcome. Thanks. I think that where Connie was going was a helpful framing for me around the acknowledgement of power in these accountability systems of, so even amongst us, amongst one another, there are different power dynamics, but in police accountability, the lack of acknowledgement of the power that's in the room of the police versus a victim is not often acknowledged. And so a goal for me, if it was to be equitable, would be that acknowledgement of who holds the power in the room, particularly when there has not been historically the highest level of accountability for police misconduct. So that's where Connie's point kind of landed for me in tying these together.
Can I ask something? Can I jump in and ask something really quickly? Would that be under people-centered faith? Under number 5, a system that does not privilege the accused over the complainant? Would that, or could that be massaged into something that you're thinking?
Yeah, perhaps. I think that it's like, so what I was hearing Connie acknowledging is that like someone has to risk their power. When people of privilege are in a space, it requires, well, it should require a risk to their power. And that is not historically what's happened. It's often been, people who don't have any power are in a really vulnerable position already and then make themselves more vulnerable. And so that power imbalance is sort of the piece that it feels like to me, it like falls in every single category. So yeah, I'm comfortable putting that under people-centered.
And thank you, Faith. Are you finished with your comment? Thank you. Okay, Eva?
Hi, thank you so much, Commissioners. I just also wanted to respond to Ms. Connie's comments or views and opinions on equity. And I just wanted to add, well, how I interpreted it was that, and I'll also piggyback off of our last speaker as well. I think that it's essential that we acknowledge our own power and privilege, those of us who have it, and use it to amplify the voices of those who are marginalized. And I think that there is an obligation, a duty to advocate and use your power and privilege for that. I just don't want to lose the part in which I think is most significant is not speaking out for what I want, but when I'm speaking out and using my privilege, I'm asking the marginalized groups what it is that they need and they want, and I'm amplifying that with my privilege. And so I just wanted to respond and say that that was how I was interpreting it. And then I also felt that it was really important that we are using our privilege or power, any that we may have, to advocate for those who don't, so that we can share it.
Thank you, Commissioner Eva. Thank you. And Commissioner Soy?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for all the work that went into this so far. I have a more general comment about the document, and a question I had as I was looking over it earlier, or like something for us to think about moving forward, is if and when we create documents like this, it might be really helpful for us to include measurable success criteria when we're thinking about how do we figure out if we're successful, because a lot of these success criteria are sort of like feelings based, which is great, and we should absolutely have those as well, but it's difficult to measure success when we don't have sort of a baseline or any sort of way to measure things. So if you look at like at the UN 2030 agenda, for example, they have like these overarching goals, and it's like, you know, I could list some off, but it's similar to what we have here. It's the values, right? But then they have targets for those goals, and those are like specifically measurable things that different countries can work towards achieving. And so I think it might be useful to think about what we could measure in terms of our success.
Thank you, Commissioner Soy. Now, Commissioner Monica, please.
Hello. The one thing that was jumping out at me was, I think our trauma-informed lens, our value, you know, one of the things that is basic to trauma-informed lens or trauma-informed care, as I know it in healthcare, is that it is designed, or hopefully it does not re-traumatize the population that you're caring for or that you are serving. As a clinician, that's how I understand one of the concepts of trauma-informed lens. So when I look down, I believe it's on like the 6th value. If you go down a little bit, a system which is created with a value, where is it? Oh, here we go. City government that helps does not harm its population, reduce harm caused by PPP. I think this can all go under trauma-informed, the trauma-informed lens. because that is the concept of trauma-informed, is that you don't cause re-traumatization, right?
Thank you. Monica, Commissioner Monica, are you still giving input?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank
you. Commissioner Dan?
Hi, yes. First of all, I just wanted to say that I'm very glad that Commissioner Arce said that, because that was my first point, was going to be about not re-traumatizing people. There's particularly somebody from the community who made a comment in the Q&A already addressed that issue, so I'm glad that got brought up. I also want to make sure that we use the word survivor instead of victim when we can, because I think that's important, or we can say victim/survivor, but you know, especially because the people who are dead are not going to be able to go through the system, but the people who have survived and who have survived the police brutality can. I was checking this against the language in the actual city charter, and I made a little notebook today for myself where I put the little city charter and all the other paperwork.
Commissioner, you are on mute. Would you finish or you still comment? You finish?
I think your mic got pushed away, Dan.
Yes, when you show us the notes that you made. Can you hear us, Commissioner? Okay.
Not if you need help.
Yes. Okay, what we can do, and while he gets situated again, we can go to Commissioner Angie and then to Sophia, and then when he comes back, we can go back to him. Angie?
Thank you. And Dan, I will jump off as soon as you can get back on, so I don't think I'll steal your time. I just wanted to reach out to Zoe, who talked about measurable success criteria, who Zoe, I definitely agree with you. We were, this is definitely not a rough draft, but a first iteration. And there might be other documents that come from this document. We were trying to keep it, well, we were working hard on this document. Let me just say that we had a lot of summarization that we were trying to do in a short amount of time. But I do think that having solid, measurable criteria is a very, very good thing. And it also helps us with our roadmap of where we're going and being able to frame what we're doing in the future. So if you don't mind, if I contact you about that, that would be great. So thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. And before, oh yes, Lovisa, please, Commissioner Lovisa.
Sure, I had somewhat a similar thought to Zoe, which was my first thought was I'm so glad that we have this document. Thank you for this document, and I'm so glad that we have success criteria, so that we're not just like hand waving and like saying that we care about these things, but sort of my first thought was what would it look like to have SMART goals related to each of these things? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. I think, and I think it would certainly be some work to translate all of those things. I wonder if it might be, an example might be every complaint is investigated within a certain amount of time. I know that the current system has some timelines, but maybe some things sort of like specific timelines. Just looking at the numbers of complaints, thinking about also what the ultimate goals are, and thinking about how the people who will be working in this new system can achieve those goals, and also how we can yeah, how it can make the system humane, both for the people who are going through it and for the people who are administering it. And that's it. That's my comment.
Thank you. And before I pass it to Commissioner Eva again, I know, and to Dan, Commissioner Dan, I'm gonna pass it to the co-chair Sophia, and then I'm gonna ask commissioners that haven't participated if they want to participate, and then we can go back to the ones that already participated. Commissioner Sophia, please.
Yes. I'll put my hand down now. I just want to make a couple comments about the criteria. We have thought about that. Angie and I, we were trying to figure out how to do that. And Angie and the scoping, it's going to be, well, she's going to go over this next section, and that you can look at that, what she's doing there, and compare and see how, whether we need to keep it in the scoping or we want to put it in this document. So I just wanted to bring that up just so it gives you a heads up, stay tuned, right? And the other thing is, I do want to take more comments and from other folks, but I want someone to remind me to go back to our first example with equity, and let's go to, as a group, and do a success criteria for that, because I think we're almost there, but I do want to get all the comments before we go there. So one more item, I just wanted to see if the attorney was still there. I'm not sure what her comment was, but I don't want to miss it if it's something that helps us along. So I wanted to see if she's still there and if she can quickly make her comment, and so that we can move on to the next comments from our commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. And yes, Sarah Ames is here. Please, Sarah, you can.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ames. I'm a deputy city attorney and staffing the Police Accountability Commission. And I just wanted to note that the Oregon Public Records Law prohibits release of records related to police discipline. It's a state law. The city council cannot change it. They are exempt from disclosure under the public records law, and unless on a case-by-case basis, the public interest outweighs the interest in confidentiality. There's a lot of case law, and oversimplifying, but generally I have a concern with the compatibility of the meetings of the new system are open to public and media with the current state law. And I just wanted to raise that as a question, and I could certainly report back to you with more detail on that, but I just wanted to raise that as one concern as you're setting up the new system. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know Dan, Commissioner Dan was cut off before he finished, and we're gonna get back to him now. Commissioner?
I don't know who's barking. It's not me. So I just wanted to add that the one of the success criteria is that we meet the will of the voters that put the city charter together. This is why I was holding that up to the camera when I knocked my phone off the hook before. So I want to make sure that's true. And in terms of City Attorney Ames's input, you know, these are our goals and values. Whether or not this is what ends up in the finished document exactly the way it's written, or if we have to like adjust it for what the law says, that's another thing. But this is, I think this is our goals, and if our goal is to have open meetings, that's what should be in our goals document. So thank you.
Thank you. And before we continue, is there any of the commissioners that hasn't spoken wants to bring something to this conversation of the goals and values? Is there anything, an idea? Oh, Commissioner Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. I wondered, just following up on Sophia's comment about the goal for number one, it seemed like if we could capture our discussion that we began with in our equity training, that could be a nice way to identify our goal, which, I mean, I felt like we had a lot of good conversation around that. The goal is that outcomes are not identity-based, and outcomes are, fair and just for all, irrespective of your identity. So, I mean, it seemed like those were kind of the takeaways I got out of it, although I don't want to speak for the group, but I thought that would be a nice way to respond to Sophia's comment about trying to fill that in. And then I just had a question about number 3, the bracket. Maybe I'm not understanding why that bracket is there. Maybe somebody could explain that to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Sophia or Commissioner Angie, you want to explain about the space here?
I can if Sophia's not on. So we could not decide on the most powerful word to put there. So we put some suggestions for everybody because nothing sounded perfect to us. And that's why we are talking with the entire commission right now because 20 brains are much better than 3 or 2. So that's what's highlighted in green are the words that we came up with for that section right there, or for that word, that first word. But please, we do appreciate your input.
Thank you. Commissioner Simap?
Yes. So one of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to being able to add language to item number 3 and what we were exactly talking about right now, if we're asking if we're setting up the board to be able to make sure that the law enforcement, when they come to the table, acknowledge trauma caused by policing in our communities, I'm wondering if is that the framing? Because my thought is that they have very robust police contract, and there might be legal hurdles there in order to get them to suggestively admit something regarding harms that policing causes to communities.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioners and Co-Chair Sophia, you're next, and then Commissioner Eric. I don't know. Oh no, maybe Commissioner Eric, you're next.
I said 2 quick things. I think the language on the equity and inclusion outcomes are not identity based. I think is strong, but I think also it needs to be followed up with outcomes are measurably fair and just. Because if you have to identify and understand identity to know after the fact if they are in fact fair and just, just not hoping they are, and looking at sort of the aggregate numbers. And then on the trauma-informed lens, I do like that, and I think as CMAP said, I think acknowledge maybe the word we have to go with, but I think do we recognize also that's not just the trauma caused by the policing in the communities, it's the trauma from the system the accountable system at the back end, right? I mean, there's as much, if not more, trauma to communities based on how those incidents are dealt with than the incidents themselves, quite often. It's the backlash, it's the recognition that there is no justice, there is no fairness. So while the incident itself could be seen as a one-time thing, the system loses credibility on the accountability. So I think you have to recognize sort of the trauma in the disposition of those incidents at the back end.
Thank you, Commissioner Eric. And Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, I just wanted to go back, and since we're having such great conversation right now on items number 1 and 3, why don't we go over to the success criteria and let's look at that. And as our discussion has gone, what would that look like? We've discussed what our goals are and what would that success look like for the commission at the end. What would that look like? As the commission is set up, it's operating and functioning according to the values and goals. What would be our success criteria? It could be quantitative or qualitative, but I just wanted us to focus on that as well, so we can kind of go through a couple examples. And then I want to ask Victoria, how much time do we have?
We can go another 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, I just want to keep us on track.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm opening it up for the group to just make comments and look over the success criteria that we already have, and then add and adjust as it comes to you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm gonna pass it to Commissioner Jason because he hasn't participated first. And then I will go ask again if somebody that hasn't participated wants to participate and go back to everyone. Yes. Commissioner Jason?
I wonder if the word trauma is what you mean. Trauma is a word that is very debated at this point in the mental health industry. We're wondering how to identify it as part of a growing understanding of a psychiatric disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder. But some people mean to use it as a word that means something that I'm worried by something. I'm worried by the policing and accountability system. I'm concerned about it. I'm disturbed by it. Trauma leads to an idea that someone has been permanently physically harmed, where there's some responsibility for repair. And I'm not sure that that's true for all people. If you say designate the trauma has been caused to people of color, or trauma has been caused to people with mental illness by police, then that's much more specific and I think more defendable. But I think the word trauma as used will be hard to defend to the general population.
Thank you, Commissioner. And before I pass it to the people the commissioner that have their hand raised, I'm gonna ask again if Commissioner Tirsa or Debbie wants to comment. No, thank you. Commissioner Tirsa?
Sure, just going off of Jason's comment about the word trauma, I'm wondering if maybe harm would be a better word to use. I also agree that the word trauma is really heavy and not everyone experiences trauma by policing practices, but maybe harm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for your comments. And I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Eva, you raised your hand a long time ago, and I say I will give opportunity to others, but would you like to comment what you were comment prior? And then I go with everybody there for second time.
You know, I had my hand up and I put it down, and I'm interested in hearing other perspectives. I am interested in hearing CMAB's response to Jason's in regards to the word trauma, or applying a trauma-informed lens, and whether that's subjective or objective, whether that applies to a specific marginalized group or not. And then also understanding that when we discuss trauma, there are different forms of trauma. And so even considering like historical trauma, vicarious trauma, there are just many different forms. And so I'm just interested in hearing more about why that came up and more on that. Sorry.
Thank you. And now I will pass it to Monica, trying to go in order because she's now, and then, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Monica.
Thank you. I think the concept of trauma-informed lens is that we establish a system where we make the assumption that people come with their experiences that can be difficult, not just in regards with police, but in regards with sexuality experiences as children, domestic violence, substance abuse, and all of those, and so that we come to this work acknowledging that it's kind of like a vital sign. Everybody gets their blood pressure taken when you come into a clinic. Everybody should be treated as if they've had an experience that may have been very difficult. And the idea is to create a place that is safe for people that have had difficult circumstances and difficult pasts, which is a lot of us and most of us, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Before I pass it to Commissioner Lovisa, Commissioner Sophia, would you like to answer or ask a question or make a comment regarding the document?
Just in the light of time, I was going to ask Victoria again about how much time we have left, but I did want us as a group to just kind of go over all of the values, goals, and criteria just really quickly, just to get input. But I do want your comments now. I know we're running close on time, so I want us to just get through their comments and then go through each of the criteria, just because I want everyone to really take a look at it while we have the whole group here. And so we can get some quick comments on the whole, all of the values and comments, and so we can work on this, because this by far it's not even close to being finished. But we want your input, and if you want to participate in doing this at a later time with the Angie and I will welcome you. So we can keep going. Victoria, I don't know how much time we have.
We have 15 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Lovisa, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk about this all night. I feel like we could probably talk about this document for another, 3 hours or 3 days. There's so much here. I did have some comments about number 3, the trauma-informed lens, but they actually might be a little less important than sort of just bringing up in terms of just taking a look at all of the values. I noticed that justice is not on this list, and I guess I would love to hear any thoughts, or if the framers of the document had any thoughts about justice, and just where that comes in here, and if it seems like an appropriate value for this system.
Thank you. And would you like to suggest? Okay, it's already taken a note. Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. And Commissioner Sima, please.
Yes. Sorry. Regarding going back to just kind of dig into and with what Jason was saying, what I was agreeing with when Jason was talking about trauma in itself, the entire aspect of being having a trauma-informed lens, by my understanding in victim advocacy, is that oftentimes you want this training provided so that way that this board will be clear and they will have a trauma-informed lens. Otherwise, they're trauma-assumptive lens if they're not even trained into it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that, if we're going to talk about trauma-informed lenses, we got to be a lot more specific and break that open as to how trauma applies across the board, the different variations of trauma that was mentioned earlier. And therefore we can actually have an approach, an actual trauma-informed lens approach. And we will have a way to actually access the success criteria, right? And I think it also goes back to when it was talked about that by Eric and even by Zoe, you know, as far as like how measurable is our success criteria. We have success criteria, we have mentions of it, and this is a good place to start because it's an incredible document that we're working on, and it's an awesome template. So what we probably want to find is a way to be able to access and empower and make these qualitative. And when I say qualitative rather than quantitative, the idea is that having an approach that we're looking specifically per case, and we're setting up the IPR board to succeed in looking at individualized case and provide the best quality approach and outcomes, and then to kind of utilize all this momentum that we build in here, that if we have measurable outcomes in here, then ultimately we have, with what Lavisa was looking for, justice. You know, because I think the component justice is the whole thing, right? If we're able to create a positive result out of our good work, if we can put this together and we do it well enough. So the three things, sorry, just to sum it up, the three things would be like, if we are going to talk about trauma-informed lens, then I would, in the goal, I would remove the word trauma. I would use a synonym like harm, but make sure that we understand that when it comes to success criteria that we're talking about, are we talking about training this board to be trauma-informed in their approaches, and specifically what tools of trauma are we working with, because it could be really broad. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but thank you. Okay, we still have 10 minutes, and this is the main discussion of today's meeting. It's very important, and we have to keep on mind what Commissioner and Co-Chair Sophia told us, that they want you to see the whole document, the whole values, and review everything. And if you also, for some reason, after the meeting, you remember something or you would like to work with them, with Commissioner Sophia and Commissioner Angie, you are welcome to, because this is very important. This is the foundation of the work you're gonna do. And now I'm gonna pass to Commissioner Zoe and then Commissioner Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. So I've been thinking about this in terms of what I've been learning at policy school, which is, okay, we have a treatment, which is the creation of the Police Accountability Board, and we're looking for an outcome, and the outcome is dependent on the treatment. And so it's sort of like, if you're thinking about all of these ways are like different, I'm not going to speak in statistics, but they're different like ways to contribute to that outcome, right? And so it's like, how do we measure that? I started thinking about trauma, but then what I came up with had more to do with sort of like, what is the outcome of the board, which is perhaps, or maybe for one of these values, would be the uptake of this system based on the estimated rates of police misconduct, and the uptake of this system specifically that's reflective of the communities that are most impacted by police misconduct. There are often ways to estimate that, and it would be interesting to talk to people who do work in that field. And then specifically in trauma, to sort of like reflect what Seema was saying, as far as creating like individualized care systems, is perhaps in this particular point, in terms of like a qualitative data collection method, having a survey of people who have gone through the police accountability process and increase, like, you know, being able to show that satisfaction with the process increases with the implementation of the board.
Thank you, Commissioner. So they're very good ideas. Thank you. Commissioner Jason?
So I'll speak a little bit more about trauma. I think there's actually using the term trauma in two ways. And I think the way we should use trauma is the way that Commissioner Monica spoke of a moment ago, which is that we should understand that people come to this process, come to work, serve on the board, come to work for the board, come with a complaint to the board, come to be judged by the board. They may have their own experience of trauma, and we should be aware of that. But we're also building a board to make determinations about misconduct. And I think the primary value we need to have is fairness. And this is, you know, Lovisa uses the word justice, which is kind of a loaded word. It has a legacy of difficult definition and interpretation, but fairness, I think, comes back to common sense and a common understanding. And that's quite variable in different communities. But I think if we make fairness a value, we can say that that term right there where could you scroll up, please, to what I'm speaking about? When we say trauma caused by policing or harm caused by policing, one of our values becomes that we assume that perhaps the officer that is coming for a judgment has caused harm. And if we do that, we are not going to be very credible. And those persons who we're trying to facilitate their change in their behavior, they won't listen to it. So I would cut that whole section out and rethink it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jason. And before I pass it to Commissioner Dan, I want to check with Commissioner Sophia, the co-chair and the creator, for this document. Is there any comment that you want to add to what they have said? We still have 6 more minutes.
Okay, so with our 6 minutes, I would like to go over some of the other, we've gone item 1, 3, we've added another item. I would like for someone in the group to comment on the other ones, just to see where we're at. What do we think about this? I think there's 2, 4, 5, 6. We've got quite a few. So we got 6 minutes. So I want us to go over that, and maybe if we can get someone to choose one of those to just discuss with the group really quickly, and just get some quick comments on how do we as a group feel about that value, goals, and outcomes.
Thank you. And just to comment is that the 2, anti-racism, number 4, transparency and trustworthiness, number 5, people-centered, community-centered, empowered, is in green, and number 6, city government that helps, no harms its population. And I know Commissioner Dan has his hand raised. Can you comment, or would you comment on one of these new that the co-chair would like us to comment, or is something about the other 2?
I think I can. I have to tell you, I'm very confused by the whole process. So one of the points that's in the city's goals is about communication, and I think this goes under transparency and trustworthiness, that we want a system that actively communicates with the public. That is to say, and if we need to define it here, I don't know if we need to, but I just want to say that. That is to say, we don't just have them put stuff up on a website and say, there you go, you can look at it. That they actively communicate it, that they go, present it to city council, they go to community meetings, they go to individuals in the community or organizations in the community and present. So it's not just, there you go, I put it on the website. So active communication, and I really want to remove the name Proud Boys from the goals document. We should not be giving them power by using their name for one thing, but we should also just broaden it out and say white supremacist groups, because that's what we mean. I can give you a long history about why not to name a specific group, but I think that would be a good idea to be more generic. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a very good idea. Okay, who else would like to comment on the ones that we haven't commented? Against anti-racist, transparency, and thank you, Commissioner Dan, that talk about that. Justice of fairness that you suggest. Oh, yes, Commissioner Catherine, please.
Thank you. I was going to comment on number 6, which is one of those that we haven't really talked about. And various reasons that word helps. I get kind of stuck on, I think that the word might be serves, because really that is what the government is supposed to serve those who it works for. Help sounds a little bit more discretionary, and I think serve is more captures, I think, the role between the government and the people. And this could be controversial, but I just want to lift it up. If all this works right, I think it does enhance and public safety. And I think public safety is a value that when we're in this space, people want to incorporate. If we're responding, in general to the people that pass this measure, I think that the goal, the reason that there was such a broad consensus, is I think people felt that an enhanced accountability system would ultimately enhance the public safety in our community. And what could be controversial about that is that term is often used to to sort of suggest that accountability comes second. And I'm just lifting it up as a potential result of the work we're doing, not something that it's suggested it's an either or. We have accountability or we have public safety. I guess I would like to see us working on an outcome that lifts both.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Catherine. It's yes and no either or. Thank you. Commissioner Soy, please.
Yeah, thank you. I have a comment on the anti-racism value. I think it's obviously a value that we really need to include, but I think the goal we might need to tailor a little bit more. Currently, it's dismantle institutional and systemic racism in policing. And while I think that would be an amazing goal, I think it is beyond the scope of this board. I think that it should be dismantle institutional and systemic racism in the police accountability process. We don't have purview over the entire policing system. And I think we need to continue to make that clear, because I do think that a lot of people voted for this board thinking that we would end policing. And we are specifically working on the police accountability process, which is but a small piece of the policing process. And if we can springboard that into anti-racism in the entire policing system, amazing. But I think we do need to be specific in this case.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Soy. Before we close this section, is there any other comment, or the co-chairs, Commissioner Sophia and Commissioner Angie, do you want to comment on something before we close and pass to the next item on the agenda, Commissioner Angie?
I just wanted to thank everybody for all their comments on this. Sophia and I did spend a lot of hours working on this, but when we were working on it, we knew that, especially as we were moving into like our 6th or 7th hour of working on it and reviewing things, that our vocabularies weren't as powerful as they could be, and we knew that bringing this to you, you would be able to help us work through all of it. And thank you for really taking the deep dive today, tonight into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie, and thank you for also put the message or the comments on the chat. Commissioner Sophia, please.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone as well as a group, and to speak to some of the comments. We really appreciate all of your comments, because there's just no way we could think of everything. The process, as Angie spoke to, it was very difficult to kind of put these things into perspective, and we went back and forth and like, what are we trying to say? What is the goal here? So I could understand if some are feeling like they don't really get it. It took us a while to kind of focus this, and it still could use a lot of work. So we're really grateful for you guys' comments, and as all the commissioners here. And to actually please just shoot us an email if there's something you want to add, some thoughts you have. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. And I want to say that we'll now conclude the discussion on this item for today, but we will circulate the draft values documents with today's edits for one more round of suggestions. Just still, all the commissioners have a chance to review this document and bring and make more suggestions in advance of the March 17th full commissioner meeting. We have the next full commission on March 17th, and you will have another chance to make suggestions. We will take a what time is this? 8:13. We will take a 5 minutes break and come back for the next of the discussion and the agenda. Thank you. Agenda. Oh, sorry, I always forgot. Our next item in the agenda is talking about agenda and scope, and I'm gonna pass it again for the co-chairs. They're gonna do a presentation of the document. And Angie, Commissioner Angie and Sophia, if you could briefly describe the document while we get the screen share set up, please.
Yes, that would be me. So this document is more of an example this is the rough draft of the scope of work for this committee that came out with the council documents. So it was written pre-commission basically, and it does have, you know, the phases, some phases in here, and it has some definitions in here and some very useful information that I personally think is too vague. And I would like to work more on this in the next few weeks and give a more concise scope document to everybody at our next full committee meeting to vote on and have everybody review it ahead of time, of course. But we can kind of go over just the pieces that are here right now, and then kind of talk about that a little bit. But then if you know, I'm hoping to tap a couple of people or maybe everybody if you want to in a maybe a subcommittee that to work on this scope of work, which will then inform our agenda moving forward. So here is our very rough draft of what our agenda will be for the committee, but it's not very specific. It's relatively vague. So that's the presentation of this. I can go through and read it with everybody, and I don't know how much time everybody had to take a look at it in the first place. I know that we were working on the values and the goals document a lot more this week, so I personally haven't had a chance to move this into a different document, but I do have an idea of a framework of a scoping document that I've used in project management before. And, you know, if anybody else has experience with that and wants to work on that committee with me, I would really appreciate it. So in this scope of work, we have our organizational phase that we're in right now that's supposed to end in March, at the end of March. And then next we're calling it the fact-finding phase, which, you know, will include identifying current barriers that have stymied the work of the Portland's police oversight systems, and, you know, try to make suggestions on overcoming these barriers. What if any changes need to happen to the charter section defining our new board? That piece is highlighted for a reason, because I know that there's a time frame on that, and I think it's until the end of June. And please correct me, Samir, if that is not the right timing. And then what changes, if any, the commission wants the council to make to its charge. So those are the three bullets that we have right now, but that phase will definitely have a lot more bullets and hopefully more specific bullets. And I think I'm going to get a little help right now.
Yeah.
Samir, go ahead.
So yes, so the date is in early July that the Charter Review Commission needs to send anything they would like sent to the ballot for 2022. There are other ways to get a proposed change to the charter to the ballot through City Council or elsewise, but it's in early July, and they would need time to review the suggestion in order to include it in their package. So we couldn't send it to them the day before that and expect that it would get included, but rather need to give them at least a few weeks to review and consider something to be included in that package of proposed charter amendments.
And what will be the date then, Samir?
I don't have an exact date to share, but I just wanted to share why it's relatively early in the process as opposed to in like a transition plan section, is because they want it in advance of, I don't want to say a hypothetical or a guess, but in early July is their deadline. So they would need it in advance of that.
Thank you, Samir. And yes, Commissioner Debbie?
So it's my understanding though that the Charter Commission is doing a phase 2. They want to kind of get the form of government election methods on this by this July deadline. But I know the league's going to testify this month, giving them an idea for something to work on their phase 2 part of their process. So I think there may be worth checking to see if there is an opportunity to do something later.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Any other comment, commissioners, or questions about this document? And as Commissioner Angie explained, this is just an example of template, pretty much. It needs to be filled out with information and your comments and suggestions. Commissioner Dan, please.
Yes, I appreciate that it was explained that this came from the scope of work document that the City Council put together. And I also appreciate understanding why the charter amendment proposal was put so far up. I don't think we're going to know what we need to change in the charter until we get farther down into the process and find some things that might need to be changed or modified or upgraded. So I want to make sure that that isn't only in that phase and that it's we can make recommendations to City Council as well to change the charter. I think they can send it to the voters again if they want to. And I'm going to say something here that I was thinking about starting my comments at the Bylaws Committee meeting this weekend which is that form follows function. So I think that in the very first thing, the fact-finding phase for most of us on the commission is understanding the current oversight system as it is, and then we can identify the barriers to it as part of that. But I think we need to kind of get a real good background on what's going on currently, and part of the fact-finding phase should also be examining what kinds of elements exist in other boards around the country. And I say that's very specifically elements in other boards because people always ask, what's the best oversight board in the country? It's like, there is none. You have to take the bits and pieces that really are good and put them together to make something that works for our city. You can't just mimic something that works somewhere else. We have to have something that's specific to Portland. So those are my two things. Look at the existing system and reach out and look at what else is out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Yes. And, this document and the other documents are going to help us figure out what subcommittees we need in the next phases and whatnot. So thank you for bringing that up. Because I'm sure examining the kinds of elements existing in other boards around the country will be a very time-consuming effort. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and then moving on to the overall phase 3, the new system, definitions of terms, powers of the new oversight system, organizational details, and reporting to the public and to council. These are all things that we're expecting to do and have be part of it. And then there's the transitional plan after that. So, so this document and this scope of work is very vague, but you know, understandably, this was written before we were together and we were discussing any of these ideas and really getting into the nitty-gritty of everything. So, you know, especially number one, going back and figuring out what Dan said, understanding the current oversight system, very important to finding, figuring out, you know, how we are going to move forward. So, so once again, I did, I hope that, you know, if anybody does have input right now, please do have some input right now. But if anybody would like to work on these scoping documents with me and Sophia, I would appreciate any help we can get. So, oh, good. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for raising your hand. Oh, I love that. I can contact you or you can contact me and we can set some time aside to go through this and try to suss out more information that can go into these documents to try to focus our efforts and try to make things more concise and document all of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie. And Commissioner Dan?
Actually, I do have one other thing to add. I actually went through the scope of work document earlier this afternoon, getting ready for this meeting, and it specifically lists reaching out to, well, they list some specific things, but reaching out to the people defined in our scope of work as part of this fact-finding phase, I think would be a good thing to put in there. So it lists the stakeholders from the DOJ agreement, other parties, impacted communities, concerned community members. Those are, you know, I don't know if we need to be that specific, but I think that this phase should include reaching out to and listening to people.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we have around 10 minutes for every one of the commissioners that want to ask questions or participate. Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, I just wanted to just comment for Dan. We were planning on doing more details, just as you mentioned, you know, the scoping. It's a lot more detail. That was something that was sort of mentioning again with, I think it was Zoe, Commissioner Zoe, and some others that were talking about more precise goals and outcomes. So we've been thinking about that. We just haven't gotten into it and we wanted to present it to the group to see what you guys were thinking. So I'm going to leave it open to the rest of you guys to comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. And Commissioner Catherine, you have your hand raised. I don't know, you want to comment?
Yeah, well, I was, as these things go, my coming out a little bit subsumed, but I guess my sense is that both the public engagement process that Dan was just talking about, and then the reporting process, the reporting to public and council, which is listed in phase 3. My sense is that those are really a part of every phase. The public engagement process, I think, is one, obviously we need in fact finding, but then would need in, as we're developing the new system, getting feedback on it. And then I know under our charge, the reporting requirement is, I think, quarterly to the council. And, you know, I think as part of our public engagement, you know, we need the public to be responding. So I think we're reporting to the public regularly as a part of the public engagement process. So it seems to me that both public engagement and reporting back to the public and to the council are really a part of all of the phases in some way.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Catherine. And also Faith said she will help you, Commissioner Angie and Commissioner Sophia, with this document. Thank you, Faith. Would you like to comment something or just wanted to make yourselves available? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we still have a couple more minutes. Is there any other suggestion, question, or something that you would like to see there, or a comment? Okay, because we have like 6 more minutes or we can pass, but is there anything else or anybody else that can help with this document and given suggestion? This document also, they will be sent one more run in advance for the March 17. No, this was the other, sorry. Commissioner Sophia Nanji will continue working with the help of everybody that can help with this document. And then the next steps for this is for members to give their input in the agenda and the scope document after is a draft, so that co-chairs can integrate it into a single draft document for the next full commission meeting. You'll get an email asking for this information back by March 9, so that it can be collated and circulated with plenty of time for people to read and review it.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for saying that. Yes, we have the work on this document will be done between now and March 9th, so we can send a draft out to the entire commission before the next meeting.
Thank you. I guess it's not anybody else has no more comments on this topic, then we can move on to the subcommittee's co-chair reports. Next on the agenda is the subcommittee co-chair reports. And we have a little bit like, now we have a little bit of like 7 minutes or 5 minutes for each of this. And please, if you can start, thank you. The subcommittees. And the subcommittee, the first we're gonna review and check is the subcommittee report on the community engagement framework. And we want for the co-chairs to, I don't know, Monica and Faith to report on this, please.
Yep. Hello, good evening. The Subcommittee on Community Engagement Framework met last week, and we got, I would say, 95% to a draft. So that's very exciting. We are excited to bring our draft for consideration to the full commission. There are still some pieces that we want to iron out, and we know that we need to have it publicly available 7 days before we vote on an item. So we have not circulated it as it was not ready 7 days ago. I know, Monica, if you want to provide some more context for how far we got along.
We broke the different sections of the document into, we had different people working in sections and put it together in the last meeting. So, I mean, is this something that we can share now as a draft, or?
If you give me a second, I can try and screen share it.
Thank you.
So the kind of formatting of the framework, we modeled after the Charter Commission's engagement framework. So you'll see that it's purpose, vision, values and guiding principles, objectives, and then methodologies. Want to be clear that it took us a minute to understand that we really wanted to get into the how of how we will do community engagement, and really the purpose of this document is to understand more of the why we're doing community engagement and whom we're looking to prioritize in the engagement. So I don't know in terms of timing if you want us to go through, if we have time to go through this kind of 95% draft, or if we should just give a high level.
I mean, we have around 6-7 minutes to go.
Maybe it's just helpful to go through the vision section.
Yeah, maybe we can go to in the high level, like if every
Sure.
area in the high level.
Sure. So you can see that we are laying out what the framework is for, the vision of the framework, whom we're wanting to hear from. I think we really kind of wanted to straddle the line between being specific about the communities that we want to hear from, but also being inclusive. And then after vision, you can see in values and guiding principles, the areas that we want to guide the work of our engagement strategies, objectives, what we're trying to do, transparently communicate, involve folks in informed how their feedback will inform our decision making, and then finally some of the methods in which we'll go about seeking community engagement.
And I also will say this document will also be for a further meeting, you will have it, but is there any comments or more, or Monica or Sophia, you want, commissioners, you want to comment more, or you want to have a specific question or to the commissioners? Yeah, Sophia?
I just wanted to say that I was there at that last meeting, and it was a really great meeting for the community engagement. I didn't say much, but I think I was just in a different, like the public mode or something like that. So I couldn't really say much, but it was a really good meeting, and I want to congratulate you all. You did a really great job.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. And I'm with you. I was at the meeting and it was a great meeting. Is there any other comment, questions about the work and the for the subcommittee for the community engagement framework? Yes, Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, well, so towards the end of the meeting, it was acknowledged that there was at least one discussion item we didn't get to. And I heard this might be the last meeting of the subcommittee, but it sounds like there's still stuff that's got to be ironed out. So are we having another meeting of the subcommittee, or are we not having another meeting? I'm confused. Can somebody explain? Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
At present, there's no plan to schedule another subcommittee meeting of this one. However, there are two discussion items in that document that are flagged specifically, and the full commission will have the opportunity to talk about anything else beyond those as well. It'll be put on an agenda for a future meeting of the full commission in March, either the 17th or 24th. It'll be or 31st. It'll be on there, and those two discussion items will be the first ones on there. We just didn't have time to get to it today.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Seems like there is no other comments on the community engagement framework. We can pass to the next report of the subcommittee, but also I will say, I didn't say aloud that thank you for the co-chairs, for Angie and Sophia, commissioners, for the work you do, and because you worked so hard in putting these documents, and also for the co-chairs for the community engagement. You also, Monica and Faye, you also work very hard, and it's sometimes easier just to see documents here, but going to the meetings and planning and listening and capturing and put it back is a lot of work. And we are very thankful for all the work you have put on this. Thank you. Okay, then the next subcommittee report is by bylaws and internal process. And we go to the slide 16, and then Commissioner Lovisa and Jason, they're the co-chairs of the Subcommittee on Bylaws and Internal Process. Please, you wanna report, take questions for commission and members. We have around 5 minutes.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'm happy to
Okay.
kick it off. So thank you everybody who attended our subcommittee on bylaws on 2/12, I believe. We got a lot done. We did, I think, put to bed the first 3 out of 12 Roman numerals on the bylaws. So I think most of the things we have done, we do not have to revisit, which is wonderful. However, we definitely still have the bulk of the work ahead of us, which is why we have a longer work session coming up on Saturday that I just want to remind everybody about. 12:45 sign-in time, and it's going to go an hour longer than last time. It will go until 4 o'clock on Saturday. So we're hoping to get through a good chunk of items, in particular decision-making, officers, some of those sort of meaty things. And then we have another bylaws subcommittee meeting coming up on March 10th. 6:45 to 9, and then I think that we have tentatively planned another Saturday session for the 12th if we need it time-wise. So thank you so much everybody who is working on that subcommittee, because I understand it is definitely a commitment of time and energy. And yeah, I'll let my co-chair speak if there's anything Jason would like to speak to about it.
I don't have too much else to add to it. I do hope people read through the draft before the meeting and come ready to talk about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa and Commissioner Jason, for all the work you're putting into it. And yeah, it will be very important for the rest of the commissioners to take the time and read it, especially as Commissioner Jason said, before the meeting. That way they can work with your input, your ideas, and your edits or questions. Now for the next item in the agenda is about, we're gonna start the public comment. And I will say that we will be taking public comment at this time. Before we take verbal public comment, I wanted to know that verbal public comment is one of many ways to get in touch with the commission. More information will be on the commission's website, portland.gov/police-accountability, with how to submit writing or other forms of public comment. And if they can put it on the chat to the website, that is clear for everyone. And we're gonna ask members of the public to keep their comments to 90 seconds on length and keep their comments focused on the agenda for today's meeting, specifically the draft of values documents and the draft agenda document. So you can raise your hand in Zoom when you like to be called on. And now it's time for the public to make comments. If you can raise your hand, that way we can see it. And call on anybody that wants to comment on the items of the agenda. Thank you. And the website is on the chat. I don't see anybody. You can help me. I don't see anybody from the public that wants to make comments.
I don't either, Victoria.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm gonna call for the last time. If there's somebody for the public that are here listening and being part of the meeting, we wanna thank you for being here, because we know that you are investing your time and listening and getting to know what this commission is all about, and the commissioner's comments. That's very valuable as well, and we really appreciate it. And if you want to say anything, now is the time. If not, we will pass to our last item on the agenda. And is the conclusion. We're gonna talk about the parking lot recap. What will we discuss at future PAC meetings?
So what I have collected from this evening, Victoria, is a continuing conversation about trauma and the trauma lens that could be used, and that scoping it has more detail and must be more precise and bold in its outcomes. And so those are the two things that I captured in the parking lot for this meeting.
Thank you very much, Christine, for taking the notes. If there anything else that you consider, the commissioners consider that we have to add to the parking lot recap, please either you can mention it right now or you can add it to the chat. That way it is included. Thank you. And also co-chairs, Commissioner Sophia and Angie, is there anything or any topic or comment that you want to add to the parking lot recap as well? Or yes, please, Commissioner Lovisa.
Thanks. I think a topic that came up several times tonight was measurability. And I noticed, I think Eric mentioned it, Zoe mentioned it, I think I mentioned it. Just trying to make sure that as we move forward, we try to keep our work. Just try to keep in mind, how can we keep our work measurable? All right, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. Okay.
Yes, Sima mentioned that as well.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sophia.
That's right.
Yes, Commissioner Dan?
Well, I kind of mentioned when addressing tonight's stuff that form follows function is an important theme I want to think about. And so for the people on the bylaws committee that's meeting in 2 days, what I mean by that is that we were in the middle of the discussion about chair and co-chair. And I think that an answer to that can come from asking, what do we want the people who are running our commission to do? What is the, what are the responsibility of the chair, chairs, vice chair, co-chairs? We also talked at the very end of the last bylaws meeting about making the first item talking about how do we vote as a commission. And I'm wondering if we, as collectively as a commission, I'm asking the chairs as well as everybody else, if we can make that a priority and then bring that back to the next meeting so that when we're bringing the full bylaws to everybody, we have a way to vote on it. So we can work on the voting process first and then present that for approval and then bring the rest of the bylaws for approval using that that voting method.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you. I was taking a look in the Q&A section, and there's sort of a discussion in there about trauma-informed goals. And I think that Christine also brought this up from the conversation. I can't, I think Christine, but yeah, just going back to victim advocation and trauma-informed goals in the parking lot is very important, along with a lot of the other discussion that we had and the measurable goals. I appreciate that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Sophia?
I'm sorry, I was actually looking at the comments in the Q&A. I got a little distracted because I hadn't looked at them yet, but I just wanted to say to Dan, I understand your concern about the voting, and we are working on that, and the bylaws are going to help us with this. So you guys' work is really important on the bylaws to kind of get us there. We have to have the bylaws first before we could even vote. And I understand the chicken and the egg, but I will say that not knowing what's going to happen and how we're going to do it, I do know that we do have a method to vote on it. It is consensus at the moment. So it's not that we don't have any means to vote. We just have consensus to vote. Just my personal comments on that is that so far, it seems like we as a commission have been doing a really good job at our consensus, because we've really voted on some things already. And so we'll see at the 17th meeting how that goes. And I'm confident that we'll be able to get this all done. So I share your concern, but at the same time, I do have confidence in the group, and we will get it done. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. And I will say thank you. We can adjourn the meeting. They'll have some announcements if Christine can have the slide 20. And then thank you. Yeah. And thank you for all your contributions, your ideas, your questions, your comments. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I know everybody's busy and your time is very valuable and appreciated. Thank you also to the interpreters supporting access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and its subcommittees for all Portlanders. Thank you to the members of the public for being here and contributing with your thoughts and questions. And please sign up for email updates on the Police Accountability Commission and the email we can put it to https. I will not try to say it. Christine, can you say it for me? I'm sorry for this. That way we'll be clear.
Sure. https://tinyurl.com/Portland PAC updates.
Thank you very much. And also in the chat, and before adjourn, I know Commissioner Dunn has 2 announcements. If you can keep it briefly, of course, you are welcome to do the announcements.
Oh, I was trying to take 10 minutes on each one. No, just kidding. All right, so first of all, the Citizen Review Committee, which is the community board that's reviewing police misconduct cases right now, it's part of the current system, will be hearing, I've understood as of today, that they're going to be hearing an appeal at their next meeting on Wednesday, April 13th. So I would hope that members of this commission would put that on their calendar and possibly attend. The meeting would start at 5:30. The appeal usually starts within the first half hour. But you can see how the current system functions if you go to that meeting. The other thing is that there will be a fairness hearing on the Department of Justice settlement agreement that will include the 9 remedies the city is supposed to put in place to fix the problems that happened with the police brutality at the racial justice uprisings in 2020. And one of those has to do with our commission, our work, and coming up with a transition plan for the new board. So if, I imagine we'd have to go in our capacity as individuals unless we come up with a plan before then, maybe we will. But that is going to be Friday, April 29th, starting at 9 in the morning. So I think those are things that should be on your all radars if you have time for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. They're very important, and we will make sure we continue passing this information. If you can put it in the chat, that's great. If no, we can repeat it later on to remind commissioners and participants about it. Is there any other announcement? Then we can adjourn the meeting on March 3rd at thank you. Before say, Dan already put the information in the chat. On March 3rd at 8:57 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.